But welcome everyone. Just gonna give a couple minutes for folks to join. But as you're joining, if you would like to introduce yourself in the chat, that would be great. Your name, affiliation, location, and anything relevant to the group or to today's topic about apprenticeships or that you're looking to learn. Would be great to know who all is joining us today. All right, and I am going to get started and try to multitask and let people in as I introduce, because I really like to keep these to an hour. My name is Jenny Stars. I work for Renewable Energy Alaska Project, or REAP. I am the program manager for the Alaska Network for Energy Education and Employment, or ANE. And as part of that work, I help facilitate and host these quarterly meetings that we call the Alaska Energy Training Group, really to bring together energy professionals throughout the state involved in training, troubleshooting, workforce development, and even some technical assistance work, working in energy infrastructure and systems. And the group really has the shared goal of improving coordination and collaboration across different regions and industries. And like I mentioned, REAP facilitates and hosts these meetings, but we work in close collaboration with the Denali Commission, and really think of it as a shared initiative open to all partners and ideas to help de-silo our work and spread solutions to shared challenges. And so in that vein, today we're going to be discussing apprenticeship programs to grow the statewide energy workforce. We have some great folks who are involved in running apprenticeship programs around the state joining us. And just broadly, I think, we've all heard about the statewide workforce shortage, and different news articles I feel like have been popping up, especially in the last year, about, net migration hitting a new record length and non-resident worker rates. And it's really just putting a spotlight on the need to grow our own workforce now and for the future. And so that's why we decided to talk about some different ways that apprenticeships are working to recruit and support apprentices from different parts of the state today. And the programs we're discussing in detail are in the skilled trades, and we'll get more in-depth information from our two presenters. But I also wanted to mention that there's, more than 1,000, I think, apprenticeable occupations that really run the gamut of roles and positions. Things like accounting technicians and project managers, those are apprenticeable. And so it's really, there's a broad range of things that folks can train for through the format of an apprenticeship, which is generally a meld of classroom instruction and paid on-the-job learning for a set number of hours as an apprentice works their way to journey worker. So our agenda for this time together from here on out is first to hear a presentation about how Alaska Metal and Mechanical Apprenticeship is expanding their outreach and training to new regions. And then we'll have a moderated conversation about apprenticeships at OptimERA, an electrical and telecom provider in Unalaska. And then we will open up for a wider Q&A and discussion, which we also have Jackie Garcia from the Alaska Apprenticeship Office here to participate in and answer any relevant questions from her work approving and coordinating programs all across the state. Thank you for joining, Jackie. And then we'll hopefully save a couple minutes at the end for group updates. finishing up by noon so that we can all go to lunch or our next meeting, whatever is on your schedule for the day. And throughout, please feel free to put questions in the chat, and we'll get them answered either in real time or after a speaker or during the discussion portion. So I want to make one more plug to introduce yourself in the chat. I see a lot there. Thank you if you have. And then I'm going to turn it over to Bruce Bold, the Apprenticeship Coordinator at Alaska Metal and Mechanical Apprenticeship, which is connected to Sheet Metal Workers Local 23. And he's going to share his screen and his computer audio, hopefully, to tell us about what's going on there.
All right, thank you. Let's see if the screen sharing comes through. Yeah, almost there. Oops.
We see your slide, but not the
Okay.
full screen slide.
All right, how's that look?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. Yeah, we'll see how the sound works in that video. I went and did that little share thing, so let me double check. All right, looks good. Okay. All right. Well, hey, thanks everyone for coming to this meeting. I am the training coordinator for Alaska Metal and Mechanical Apprenticeship Program through the Sheet Metal Workers Local 23. Our apprenticeships are rooted squarely in HVACR. And with 50% of a building's utility costs potentially going to HVAC, we feel that's critical that we train our apprentices in best practices to ensure efficiency, sustainability, and smooth running HVAC systems. Just kind of give you guys a quick little background on our apprenticeship program. We currently offer 2 separate apprenticeship programs that are in HVAC. I'll kind of briefly cover them. Our first one is sheet metal. We've been teaching this program for a long time. It's basically an HVAC, installing air handling units, running ductwork, supply air, return air, all the different types of ventilation projects. We really cover a lot of efficient design, reducing static pressure, minimizing turbulence. We're getting into indoor air quality a lot lately. We also cover all areas of fabrication and welding. And, and the last one at the bottom, if you can see that, we call it tab. Man, I can't really overstress the importance of testing these systems. You can spend all the time in the world designing the most efficient system, but mistakes happen. Things get installed incorrectly. And if you don't afterwards go test that system and make sure it's performing right, you don't know what you have. And we're seeing a lot of growth in this area. And we're starting to do a lot of certifications in there. So that's been going really well. Our other apprenticeship is our service technician apprenticeship. Much more of the maintenance and servicing of these HVAC systems. Almost half that curriculum is refrigeration based. Whether it's commercial refrigeration, freezing systems, to just residential heat pumps, to ice machines, right? To hockey rinks, to fish canneries with large blast freezers. Refrigeration really is a large part of that curriculum. And then we also teach pretty much all heating and cooling systems. They're doing burners and furnaces and even getting into a lot of building automation, which is a fantastic place to start to get more energy efficiency out of your building, right? That's been a really big push we've been doing lately. Most of our apprenticeship is based around the Mat-Su, Anchorage area. That's where half the population lives. That's where most of the work is. But we feel there's a much bigger, we're a huge state. And, we really were wanting to start to, increase our outreach to the rest of the state. And so recently, this year, we did receive a critical sector job quality grant through the Department of Labor. And so that was kind of, you know, one of the things in there was to increase our outreach across the whole entire state. And so here's kind of a little outline of that critical sector grant, things that this grant supports. The very first one on there is recruiting underrepresented workers into apprenticeship programs. That is pretty much all of the state outside of the Anchorage and Unalaska area, you could say is underrepresented, underutilized communities. And so, you know, where were we going to start with this new recruitment push? Southeast is what we decided. We already currently have some contractors in Southeast. We had 2 apprentices in the whole Southeast region when we started this. So it seemed like a good place to start. So we really kind of used this grant's help. We'd started this a little bit before the grant. And I just kind of want to briefly cover how we've been doing this and what we've been trying to do in Southeast. And we kind of started with Catch You Can. You know, the thing we learned is you got to show up, you got to be there. And right now we're trying to go to all these different communities at least twice a year, once in the spring and once in the fall, to make sure that, you know, we're just present. You know, we start with the high schools typically. You know, we'll go talk to construction classes, welding classes, any CTE class we can get in front of. We just want to let students know, hey, here's these opportunities, right? Here's the things that, you know, you can do. We've been really partnering with UAS Catch You Can a lot. Man, Dan and Angie down there have been fantastic. And in April, we went to 2 of the welding classes and taught an intro to sheet metal class. Just kind of took over that welding class for the day, taught that intro to welding program really well. We visit all the local contractors. What are your workforce needs? Manpower needs. Job centers, of course, we go to them, and we've been partnering with Ketchikan Indian Center. Haven't taught any classes yet for them, but that's on the docket, and that's, you know, one thing we're looking at. Sitka was another stop. Oh, look, it started already.
Last
Did you hear
week,
that?
AMMA made the trip.
Was that okay? You guys could hear that? Okay, it just started playing. This is we recently went to Sitka, and we were able to make a video on our stop with Sitka High School there. We also taught classes at Mount Edgecombe's welding class while we were there, met with local contractors. And here, I'll show you guys this quick video on our Sitka High School stop.
To Southeast Alaska, reaching out to some of the state's underutilized communities. One of our key stops was Sitka. Tim Pike with Sitka High School welcomed us into his Metals Technologies class. We were thoroughly impressed with the school's equipment and facilities. This introduction to Mr. Pike and his students marks the beginning of a strong, lasting relationship between Southeast Alaska high schools and registered apprenticeships. We then transitioned to a hands-on sheet metal layout project. The students got their hands on basics, learning about triangulation, pattern making, and how to use sheet metal tools, fundamental skills that will serve them well in the trade. As we continue to expand our outreach, we're excited to bring those opportunities to underutilized communities across Alaska, building a skilled workforce and creating brighter futures, one community at a time.
All right, just kind of figured I'd show that. We put that together. You know, and that was with the help of that CSJQ grant, right? We were able to fly our marketing person down there, did a bunch of filming. And so went really well. And now we have, I mean, that was a fantastic program there, the metals program at Sitka High, which we'd never been part of before. And so that felt really good to make that connection down there. And then there's Juneau. You know, much of the same that we've done in the other communities. You know, we're able to teach that same intro to metals class at the Juneau Douglas High School. There's a really cool house build program that they do at Juneau Douglas. They cover all aspects. I mean, foundation, insulation, the framing, the weatherization, the metal roofing, and even the heat systems they cover in that house build program. So we've been making sure that we want to connect with them. UAS, once again, we've been talking with their construction, refrigeration, and welding programs. And I kind of have a highlight there that, Robin Gilchrist from the construction program got a hold of us and she was like, hey, I don't have a mechanical ventilation instructor. And we were able to find one of our local members who had a lot of experience in this area, and he ended up teaching that entire springtime class. Imparting a lot of his knowledge, letting a lot of people know about opportunities in HVAC. So that was kind of one of the highlights from there. And so then, we'll jump to this, is it working? How's it been going for us, right, to do this? In the 2 years, our numbers have grown from 2 to 7 in Southeast Alaska of our apprenticeships. I think that says a lot right there. We've never had an HVACR service tech apprentice in Ketchikan before, and now we have one working at Schmock Mechanical coming up for classes. The newest sheet metal apprentice we have in Ketchikan first heard about our program when I visited their welding program at the high school. So I feel like that's another win. That's our outreach doing some good work. In that Mount Edgecombe class we recently did in Sitka, one of the attendees we actually got on as a pre-apprentice at the hospital job. Didn't work out. I wish he was still there, but we gave a guy an opportunity. Maybe it wasn't for him, but we'll hopefully be able to do that again in the future. And in Juneau, we're just about ready to hire a new HVACR apprentice in there who heard about our program when I was talking with the refrigeration program at UAS. So what a great candidate. He's already taken the refrigeration class, slot him into an apprenticeship program and let him really become, an impactful employee. So to us, these visits are making a huge impact, and we need to do what we can to continue them. And then what's next? We started with Southeast Alaska. We've got a pretty good, connection going down there. That's still a very small part of our state. So, a lot of native corporations is where we're going to try to go next. We've been working with Bristol Bay Native Corp, Cook Inlet a little bit, and we developed an HVACR kind of introduction class. We were supposed to hold that in October. That it kind of fell through, but they absolutely want to do it in the spring, and we're going to push through with that. We've developed a bunch of curriculum for that. And where we want to go with that, how we can make this most impactful for these communities. We could potentially see energy savings in HVAC in these regions if we can, really show the proper maintenance, even just doing maybe a burner analysis or a burn analysis on an oil burner. Is the combustion happening correctly? Is it running as efficiently as possible? Maybe we could, eventually train people to do kind of some simple maintenance on systems to avoid flying someone out there to do that. Would love to see jobs created in rural Alaska. And then at the end for us, we have a more diverse pipeline of potential apprentices. We're reaching across, the whole state. So that's a lot of the impacts that we see being very, very positive on all this outreach we're doing. And then moving forward, I listed there were 4 items in our CSJQ grant that we were trying to cover. Outreach was just the first. They really want to see us partner with industry stakeholders. Well, one reason we're here today, right? All of you guys are industry stakeholders. We don't want to always recreate the wheel. We want to make sure we use our partners, and we can do these things together so much better. So this is a great introduction to what we're doing and what we can do in the future. Expanding the curriculum and the instruction. Well, we have just recently purchased 10 new trainers for our HVACR program. Everything from heat pump trainers. I don't know if you know much about variable refrigerant flow. It's a very complex new refrigeration heating system. We have pneumatic trainers, electrical trainers. We did just recently put together a curriculum conference. We just had our first one in Everett, Washington. We kind of included all Northwest states in this. And all the union HVAC service tech instructors all got together and met at a facility. We shared curriculum. We talked about ideas, training ideas. So between the trainers and our kind of increased use of curriculum, we feel like we really have stepped up that game quite a bit. It's changing so fast. that, there's a new thermostat out there every 6 months, it seems. And then the last one on there, was placing graduates into full-time positions. I feel we do a pretty good solid job of that currently in urban Alaska, right? But I think rural Alaska is where we can really improve on this. So extending that, those training programs to native corporations or any other ways to get out there is a good way. In place of doing that Bristol Bay class, we are in the talks with Jerry Jones, with BB&C, and he's possibly going to get some CTE students from, it was Toke, Glen Allen, and Delta, that we might be able to get into our facility and do an intro to HVAC program for those CTE high school students. So once again, just, hey, here's some opportunity for you guys. A lot of people don't think about the HVAC in their buildings when ultimately it takes so much energy to heat a home, especially in the winter in Alaska, and even cooling, freezers, ice machines, all that sort of stuff. And as heat pumps become a little more common in Alaska, that refrigeration side of things becomes even more important. So that's kind of where we want to go with this. And that's kind of all I have on our current outreach that we've been doing. And so I don't know if we want to take any questions possibly, or wait till the end.
Yeah, we have a little bit of time for questions now, and Stephanie sent me one. I wonder, Stephanie, are you in a good place to come off mute and ask, or would you like me to ask that
Yeah.
one?
So, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Thanks, Bruce. Hey, I'm out here in the Mat-Su, and I sit on the advisory board for the Mat-Su College. So I just wondered if you were working with the Mat-Su College at all, which has HVAC classes, or the school district. Trish Zug there is their what do you call it? Anyways, for careers in technical fields, she's their coordinator at the K through 12 level. So just wondered if you were working with either of those institutions.
Yeah, we usually visit the Mat-Su HVAC program a couple times a year to get in front of the classes. And is it still Petrie Chad, I think it is the instructor, if I have that name right. And then, but the School District, we do partner with them, and I always go to that career fair up at the Menard Center, but I need to partner with them more. It's hard to get out of Anchorage sometimes, we get so busy, but there's some really good CTE programs in the Valley that I feel like I am lacking on getting in touch with. So you could send me any info you have on that.
Okay, yeah, I'll follow up offline. Thanks.
You bet. Anything else? I probably burned through my presentation faster than when I practiced it.
I think your timing was perfect. I have a question if
Okay.
no one else does right now. I was just curious, the introductory trainings that you're developing, because I think just like knowing who's on the call with people from around the state at different regional organizations, that could be a really cool partnership opportunity for some. And I'm just curious if those are at your Anchorage facility, and how you're working out, like the logistical end of those things, like lodging for students if it is in Anchorage.
Okay. Yeah, so like with that Bristol Bay one, they were going to take care of the lodging, and we were going to do that at our training center here in Anchorage. We do have another training center in Fairbanks. It's a separate JTC, but that kind of helps too, knowing that we could do it in that up there if it was better. We'd love to see this potentially go to rural, and we could do more on-site stuff. We were going to kind of start with these pilot programs locally just to get our feet wet and see how they go. And then I would love to expand it to us taking this across the state. It makes it so much easier. We might have to get some trainers or some equipment that we take out there. We might be able to use some local stuff. I mean, everybody has heating and cooling systems locally. If we can just find one that we can use as a mock-up, or just do stuff on, then that would work well. At the moment we want to make it a bit of an introduction to sheet metal the HVAC ductwork side of things. And, you know, we do a lot of custom fabrication type stuff. So just the intro to building things out of metal, fabricating it, exhausting bad air, bringing in good air, a little bit of indoor air quality. And then we'd cover a bit of service work. We'd probably go into, you know, doing those burner analysis on whether it's oil, propane, or natural gas. Probably not so much natural gas in rural Alaska, to make sure that that's doing well. And we'd cover bits of refrigeration. You know, we cover bits of refrigerant piping, brazing, getting those systems to, you know, if heat pumps are really coming, they're going to need some work in that. But then everybody has a cooler and a freezer that needs maintenance work. So I think that's how we'd start it. But yeah, so a little bit in the early stages, but I would love to see it expand.
Great. Thank you for those details.
You bet.
I don't see any more questions for you, Bruce.
Okay.
But we might
Everyone
have.
has my contact, so you can shoot me something. And
Yes, I'll be sure to share your email in our follow-up. And there might be
okay.
more that come up in the discussion a little bit later too. But yes, thank you so much for sharing that. Two things that really stuck out to me were your like consistency approach of like, you know, we can't just go, you know, for a year, or like you're really talking about putting in this long-term effort. And then I just thought it was so cool that you guys were able to find a contractor to teach a course when there was a shortage, because I know I hear so often about instructor shortages. So those were really cool points. Thank you. So now we will move on to a conversation with Matt Scott, the Chief Operating Officer at OptimERA in Unalaska. Thanks for joining, Matt, from a much more distant part of the state than Anchorage.
Yeah, you bet.
So I promised to start this by just sharing a quick map, because we're all, I believe, in Alaska, but just to share while Matt is introducing, you know, the work that OptimERA does and where they work, I just wanted to share a quick map so that we have a good perspective. But yes, Matt, could you just start off by giving us a little introduction into yourself and OptimERA and what sort of projects you work on?
Yeah, so we're, as you said, we're a telecom company originally, but my background is electrical. I'm an electrical admin and electrician. And we kind of came about doing our own work because there was nobody else to do our work. So we grew from, you know, being a telecom and my past career as an electrician. And we just started hiring our own electricians because we couldn't get anybody, which led me to need an apprenticeship. Which led me to Jackie, who helped me get my apprenticeship set up. And that just continued on. We're a full-blown electrical general contractor, and we have 2 apprenticeships for unlimited inside-outside electricians and also for power linemen. We provide utility support as well for the local utility and a couple other small villages for their electric utilities. So just kind of by need, we started doing it, and we needed a little bit faster approach. Problems I had in the past using other sponsored apprenticeship programs was I would have an opportunity to hire somebody locally, which is odd. And they would tell me they'd get them on the roster in 12 weeks. Well, in 12 weeks, they moved away because they needed a job. So we moved towards working directly with Department of Labor, and Jackie helped me get both my apprenticeship programs spun up pretty quick, which also makes it very easy for me to onboard somebody when there is the opportunity. We have a very cyclical work schedule and like where we're at, so things come and go pretty fast, so we need to be able to respond to it. And being able to do stuff in-house was good and bad. As Bruce can probably attest to, it adds a lot of work to your schedule when you're managing it, but it also gives you the opportunity to do it yourself. That's kind of our background, and we do work all over in Southwest, or not, you know, on the Aleutians, and we also do some work in the interior, consulting and other things associated with power and distribution and utility.
Awesome. Thank you for that rundown. I think, yeah, I was surprised to hear how how far your work expands. So that's very cool. And you mentioned that you have 2 apprenticeship programs. And I think you said how long you've been running it, but can you clarify like when you started each one?
I think Jackie can probably correct me here, but I think the power lineman's been going for a little over a year. And then we formally use a third party to do our inside one. I think that was running for about 3 years, and then it's just about a year we've had it moved over directly with Department of Labor. So that's been about 4 years. And right now I've got 1 apprentice in each of the programs. One apprentice finished up in the past program, and then he moved back to Anchorage, which is sad but good. A lot of people get mad when they train people up and they leave. I actually think that's a good thing, though it is sad. That means you train them up and send them somewhere to take what you taught them and teach somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I know you mentioned, work schedules being pretty variable sometimes. And I'm curious how you've been able to match your apprenticeships to that and be more flexible with like work schedules for folks and things like that.
Yeah, our power line, the lineman apprenticeship, like he actually works on a rotation. He lived here for years, and then since his home is no longer here, but he comes back, does like a 6 to 7 week on rotation, 3 to 4 to 5 weeks off. So it's been just being very flexible with all of our employees out here. The pool's pretty limited, and it's an employee's market. So I just started to adapt, and instead of trying to fight what people want, just give it to them. And it seems to work where it's feasible and financially feasible. So a lot of flexibility with the employees, additional training. All the line work training is done through a third party. It's all distance learning for us because there is no one like Bruce, which we would love to have somebody like Bruce here doing electrical training, but it's just hard. I've been asked to train and teach some classes out here for things like that, but it's expensive. So nobody wants to pay for the hours it takes to do it for the most part, and to get enough people out here to make it worthwhile. So all of our like inside, outside journeyman electrical is all done through like a Mike Holt online training program, which is very good. It allows you to do online classes. They provide actual books too. I still a firm believer in a paper book to flip through and look at stuff at times. And then all the line stuff is done through a company called Merchant, who's actually out of Idaho, and they're pretty well known for training up linemen and distance learning. They've got a really good program. The apprentice has gone through it. My line chief actually went through it a long time ago when he was a kid. So it's a really good program as well for distance learning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. That kind of answered my question about, how apprentices fulfill their instructional hour requirement. And I think it's also really helpful to think about in terms of, like you said, there's no Bruce style training center in Unalaska, but
It's gone a long ways. When I did my apprenticeship, I won't say when, but a long time ago, I did it through AvTech. So it was the Department of Labor program was first starting in Alaska when I did it. And I did mine with Jerry at Department of Labor and with AvTech, and I got mailed paper tests, and I went up and took hand test, and everything went in. So the online learning and a lot of the videos, Mike Holt's done a lot for their online training to make it very intuitive. And their digital classroom for me for the electrical side is really good because I can go in and see what a student's working on. I can see when they've been logging in. I can see how long they've been in there. They've done a lot of things now that the old journeymen don't like when we do our continuing ed, you can't just click through the questions as fast as you can read them because you know everything. They make you actually read the content, which when I forgot that I have to do my continuing ed and I've got 3 days to do it, I'm not so impressed with, but I also really like it a lot on the flip side for the students and myself, because continuing ed is important for us too. I get stuck behind a desk most days, so but I'm also the person they turn to when they have questions, so I'm supposed to know all this stuff as well. So the distance learning and that, I can't say enough about Michael's class and what they've done to give the instructors tools when they're trying to teach remotely. You're not hands-on all the time with people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you mentioned that the flexibility in scheduling has been really helpful to recruit, but I'm curious if there's any other things that you want to highlight, just at a time when so many people are having trouble finding workers. Like you mentioned, it's really an employee market.
Yeah, I mean, flexibility, money, benefits, a lot of people, it's not just the money, but the fringe benefits, like offering paid time off or offering just unpaid time off when people want it. Some people aren't as worried about the total wage, long as they get what they want off. So just flexibility in general is the biggest one. If I can swing it with work schedules, I will bend over backwards to employees and make sure they're happy first, and then I'll figure the rest out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And you also mentioned, that like you had an apprentice who moved on to Anchorage after the program. I'm curious if you can share a little bit more about like how successful you've been in retaining apprentices after they've completed their hours, and more about, yeah, where if they even stay in the state or.
We're at about 50%, so we'll see how it goes this next round if we keep it that. We haven't been doing it that long. I said only we had the one apprentice before, so we're at 50% on that one, and I only have one in the line program right now. We can't get a lot of apprentices because the other biggest hurdle we have is work schedule and work availability. So we're trying to work more with like APIA and other programs and corporations, the state. Our biggest hurdle here locally is we see a lot of our work and money leave the community. So people bring up contractors from lower 48, they come in and do the work. We don't even hear about the work because they hire everything from out down south. They do all the work, they leave, then we come back and finish everything they didn't do, which makes it really hard to retain the apprentices because those new construction jobs are really where apprentices can shine. Nobody wants me to send an apprentice in to troubleshoot something because for one, they can't do it, which means I have to go with them. And then no one wants to pay for both of us. So I bet Bruce can speak to this. It's very hard to convince people that we need to pay people to learn. And it's whether they're expensive or cheap, it's in the end, it all comes out in the laundry. It costs no matter what. If I'm on a job not charging for myself, or if I have an apprentice on the job who's learning, they have to learn from somebody. And that makes it hard out here, is trying to find that balancing act of keeping the apprentices working and learning and not feel like employees or customers feeling like they're paying for somebody, they're paying for them to learn, but they really are. And that's kind of our responsibility as contractors and other people to figure out a way to make that work. So we do a lot of things with reduce cost, reduce the wages. First time apprentices are pretty much bill out at cost for us. We don't even really charge for them, and that the customers see that, they feel better about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. It's a very like community first sort of approach from a business. And I am also wondering if you could share a little bit about the administration of an apprenticeship, like what kind of time it takes for you. I know you mentioned that you've set it up so that you can onboard someone incredibly quickly. But for someone who's maybe thinking about, oh, like I run a small business, maybe I could have an apprenticeship. Are there any like more details that you could share?
Number one rule, do what Jackie says, because it just goes way smooth. It's really for me like the onboarding. Once we got the program set up, it was a day or two really for each program. I had done the apprenticeship before and I'd gone through one, so it was probably a little bit easier for me because I knew what some of it was. But Jackie was an amazing resource for just telling me literally what to do, just do it, and then on to the next thing. And then as far as like day to day, it's really not that bad. I mean, I make sure the students are doing their classwork, and make sure they're, clocking their time and hours, but we use a lot of online platforms and billing. So all of their hours are tracked anyways. So like our HR and time tracking system, when I did my apprenticeship, I had a spreadsheet with A through like double Z and all the categories, and I had to put it all down. And like, we don't have to do that anymore because I just can go back and do a quick search through our time tracking system, and I can see every single hour. But I did some other things like for like some of the requirements for like safety and training. We developed new billing codes. That was one-time effort for like linemen. OSHA requirements and safety training is important. So we forced all of our existing journeyman linemen and the apprentices to separate their time out. So like when they do tailgate meetings for safety, they have to clock it in differently. That way, if Jackie asks me, have they been doing safety training, I can just run a report on it and provide that report and show that once a week. And so I've delegated some of it. So delegation's good. I mean, the journeymen are really supposed to be training these people. I am a journeyman, but I also drive a desk, so I'm a bad journeyman most days. The guys in the field really are the ones who shine, train them every day, making sure they stay in front of the code books and look stuff up, taking their phones away because Google's not the answer all the time. You need to know how to look it up in a book. I think that's another hurdle. Technology is great, but the one thing I attest to all of our apprentices is that we're electricians. And work for a telecom company. So we're actually there to put the power in that turns the internet on. So you better be able to know how to do this without power in the internet because we're there to install it. So it's.
And I know that in one of our calls before this conversation, you had mentioned that you think that we build better journeymen in Alaska. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Just like rural Alaska, and you can't just drive down the road and get something. So here you have to be able to do, like we do everything from 0 volts to 35,000 volts as inside and outside electricians. We couldn't just call a contractor to do line work until we built that company. So if somebody has a problem with a hydraulic pump, we have to know how to do it because there's nobody else to call. You may have to go frame stuff up to build your things. There's no carpenter to call, or there is, you have to work with them. So I think a lot of the guys I know, when they came up in the trades down south, you were a pipe installer and you ran pipe every day, all day as your apprentice. Or why the Department of Labor program came to light in the state of Alaska is you were a parts putter on the shelf person for 4 years. And then you were a journeyman who didn't know how to do anything. And I think that's how it came about is I think Alaska specifically, because that's my experience in the program, and forcing us to do lots of different things creates a better journeyman. You can't just know how to run pipe. Like in Bruce's trade, you can't just know how to run a press brake. You can't just know how to solder something. And you may decide to do that as a career, but the guy who knows, or gal who knows how to do it all, they're the ones that succeed the most. And they're the ones who are sought after the most. And it seems like the ones in Alaska, we've been beaten a little bit harder at the jobs and the weather and just making it work.
Totally. Yeah. Thank you. Well, was there anything that I didn't ask you that you wanted to share?
I don't think so. I looked at some notes I wrote down, but I think we covered most everything. If anybody's got questions about the program, I can answer them. Or...
Yeah, maybe let's take a break and see if anyone has questions. I feel like I've talked to you a couple times, so I'm not sure if I missed some, like, there's no question that's too basic, I will say, to the group. Like, we might have missed explaining something or asking about something, but I'll give it a second to see if anyone has one. Okay, keep thinking if you have questions. I also wanted to, because we mentioned Jackie a couple times, and I know that I've worked with you a little bit recently alongside Tim, who's on the call, to work to set up a program in Galena. So I just wanted to thank you again for joining and maybe give you a chance to introduce yourself to the group and share a little bit about what you do.
So thank you for having me, Jenny. My name is Jackie Garcia. I am the state director for the Office of Apprenticeship. I took over from Mr. Hakala, and lots of people have known him because he was here for about, I think, 23 years. So I was trained by both John and Limas, so they were pretty good mentors, and so here I am now, the director of the Office of Apprenticeship. We have several new, since the time John left, though, we have several new, very unusual types of occupations coming up now. I.e., first of all, the teacher program that's coming, that has been in the process right now. Nobody would have thought that we would have a teacher registered apprenticeship program, but we have a huge shortage of teachers, and when we don't have teachers, we actually have an issue with students and how they learn. Okay, and so that has been, I think. To me, I would say that you picked two good people to be on this presentation, and that's Bruce and Scott. They run phenomenal programs, okay? But if I were to ask Bruce and Scott about recruiting and actually having students come in there or young people come in there having the basic skills, that's a tough job, okay? I mean, I retired from the state, and so I used to proctor the licensed occupations, the plumbers and the electricians in the Kenai. And I would say probably only 20% of them, if that, passed on the first try or the second try. Okay. And so most of the time it was because of the fact is that they didn't complete their schooling. Okay. And yes, the state was, a little bit kind of more or less and there was no emphasis on them actually having to complete this didactic side of being an electrician. So they didn't pass because they didn't know the codes. You have to take, it's 1 minute per question. And so if you miss a code in 1 minute, now you're going backwards basically. And so it was really hard just to get 70% on the passing rate, and so that's something that I've emphasized. And this is the reason as to why, I brought in other related instruction providers, because noticing that the younger generation does not like to read books that much. They like the bells and the whistles and, somebody reading to them and they can follow along, and, there's videos showing them some insight or some examples of how to problem solve. They like all those things, right? So why not just put it forward there and see if that makes things better? And we've had a very good graduation rate coming. Now it's coming around now. I've been here since 2022, and I'm noticing there's quite a few of them completing their schooling and graduating, a lot faster without having to take the test 3 and 4 times, graduating completing their licensing on the first and second shot, basically. And so, in asking those apprentices, and I'm a person that I chat with apprentices as much as I chat with program sponsors, and I ask them, what's the difference, right? Because I want to know. I really want to know exactly what's the difference. Did the schooling help them? Did the new program provider, was it better for them? And yeah, it was much better, and then the emphasis that, please make sure that your apprentice has a code book with them, because at the end of the day, you can't go take a test if you never looked at a code book. So you're going to have problems, and so that's, all those little things that have come up, and trying to kind of narrow it down. And what Scott said, I have it set in such a way as the whole idea is to make it as easy as possible on the program sponsor. Yes, it requires some documentation. Yes, the unions have their whole system set up in such a way that I can walk into any union building and say, show me your documentation, and it just comes up, right? But for smaller programs, we have Rapids, and Rapids is a case management system, and you can upload all your documents on there, and it's going to be there for eternity. So if an apprentice moves, so the documentation is there, and it can be pulled out and sent to the apprentice or sent to the next employer or program sponsor, stating, that this apprentice has completed or halfway in the process. So, that's one of the things that I actually emphasize and require, because record keeping is huge with the registered apprenticeship, and everything comes at the end of the year. Right at the start, you might need a few things in there, but then after that, everything comes at the end of each year. and it's not a lot, so, and yes, we have quite a few new occupations coming in, and we have this, yes, the solar occupation, I highly doubt would get approved by this, by the Office of Apprenticeship, mainly because it can be done by several occupations, basically, in the sense, right? The laborers can do it, the electricians can do it. There's almost so many other occupations, so that might not get approved, and it's not approved as yet as an energy one. But there's the wind turbine, there's the power generators, there's all those occupations that are already approved. So
yeah, I think some helpful guidance you gave me was to find an occupation that works, that covers the tasks you're trying to accomplish,
right,
and don't try to get something new approved, because it's a very long process, as you counseled.
It is a very long process, and since we have over 1,000 occupations, basically, there is, if you go on apprenticeship.gov and you go to the occupation finder, you'll notice that under a RAPIDS code, they will have several occupations, and we can tweak it 25%. So if we can tweak it 25%, why not just tweak it? The occupation is already approved. It just makes life easy for everyone else.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I want to give Matt and Bruce a chance to chime in, because I know there were a couple things that Jackie said that maybe you want to add to or respond to.
Did you have something specific to?
I just saw you nodding a couple times. I think, yeah. So if there was anything that you wanted to add, I guess, but no, nothing specific.
I nodded a lot. You can see, I mean, at times I could just see that Matt was a true educator. He was like, hey, if a kid leaves and he goes to Anchorage, how happy he is for him. It's like, well, that's a true educator there. Some of this just kind of into passing on knowledge and creating a workforce, whether it's for you or not. The documentation for apprenticeships is huge. There's a lot to it. It's a big lift. Paying the people, like everyone just expects you to hire a person to teach at night after work. Oh, and that'll be fine. And it's like, no, it doesn't. That person's tired. They've been working all day. They definitely don't have the time to do the admin portion, right? All they can really manage is just the teaching portion. And even then, for a while we had our service program taught by people at night. And I was getting called constantly because those guys are repairing a heating system, and the instructor's like, I'm on a roof and I have to get their heat running before I leave. It's like, okay, well, what do I do for class tonight, right? So there is a lot of work. I am a big fan of finding the right person and just finding a way to pay them correctly, and you will be money ahead in the end. It's hard to do. No one wants to fork out the money, but you get what you pay for.
I think in the same for wage, the same thing Jackie and I talked about at length too, is for us out here, I start like most of our programs, and Bruce, I'm sure yours is the same, like they start on a sliding scale, 60 to up to 100%. We start at like 70 or 75, just because a lot of our apprentices, hopefuls, or even if they're younger, they might already have a family. And living in Dutch Harbor, Unalaska, at 60% of a starting wage is poverty out here. I mean, if you look at it on paper, it's not poverty, but when you look at a plane ticket to Dutch Harbor, Unalaska, at $2,000 round trip just to get to Anchorage. So a lot of those things are things we really have to look at, and we add fringe benefits to our employment period for things like airfare and utilities and that. But I had a little bit better application rate for apprentices, whether they were hired or not, when I just start paying more, just because they can't afford to barely survive out here and buy groceries and do stuff or ever leave. So especially if they're family. I mean, I have both of my apprentices I've had, both were married and had kids. One was really young, a kid having a kid. The other one's in his late 20s, early 30s, but they just found the trade, and that's the trade they want to be in. So they're already developing a family. So to make 60% of the base wage, it's different than it used to be. I think when I started 60% of the wage didn't seem like a big deal. But I also turned my apprenticeship out in 2 years. So that's also changed too. Most people don't want to do that anymore.
Mhm.
Yeah, and we don't want to push away people that have a family and are a little bit older, maybe. 'Cause
Yeah.
we just want the best. We just want the
Yep.
person that's going to be the strongest, and we have to work with that. I agree. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and they're coming with really
And I
valuable
think,
experience.
And I agree with
I am agreeing
Alaska.
to, go ahead, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, and I was just saying, I was just going to agree with Alaska putting out some kind of top-notch people. I agree 100%. We end up
Mhm.
doing, you could say a jack of all trades. You end up doing everything. And some of those big cities, you know, an apprentice gets kind of pigeonholed and stuck doing just a few things, where up in Alaska, you're dealing with you have to be able to do all sorts of kinds of work in all sorts of kinds of weather, and it does create a good worker. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I'm beginning to emphasize that, I mean, that to quite a few of the smaller employers is to start, because, the complaint is that they cannot find apprentices, they cannot find good workers. And so now with the registered apprenticeship, you can start at 16 years old. So there is, I mean, there is no reason as to why, you cannot kind of, as a program sponsor, start at 16 years old. I understand, when it comes to the electricians and the plumbers and, Bruce's type of job, the 16-year-old, it might be a lot harder because wage and hour does have some restrictions for the 16-year-olds, but a 17-year-old can do almost 95% of what a 16-year-old can do. And so now I have quite a few what is called school to apprenticeships starting with these program sponsors. Okay, especially with the homeschool kids, because the homeschool kids are on their own timeline, And so, yes, IDEA has now, is joined with me, and they're starting with some of these program sponsors, taking the 17-year-olds. So yes, the 17-year-old must complete high school, but at the same time, they have 3-4 days a week sometimes, depending on how well they're doing their schooling, because they have to graduate. They have, it's kind of more or less, they don't have anything else to do. I mean, if they're not doing any sports, if they're not in any kind of any other projects, they're just maybe working part-time at Fred Meyer's or someplace or another, So why not just take that 17-year-old and put them in a school to apprenticeship? And now, even if they can finish the first year of schooling, that's still something under their belt, right? And yes, they're not going to have 2,000 hours of work completed, but they'll probably maybe have 1,000 hours of work completed. That's perfectly fine too. But then at least that's a stepping stone on them deciding if they really want to, be in this occupation or not.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Thank you so much. I'm watching the clock and want to give a little time for any updates from the group. I know we're running short on time, but I'll stop talking if anyone wants to raise their hand or come off mute to share any updates about what's going on in your neck of the woods.
Well, I'll say a quick hello, Jenny, because I have to go to another meeting at noon, but I'm Steve Cleary. I'm a new person here at the Renewable Energy Alaska Project at REAP, and I'm going to be working with Jenny on the Alaska Energy Training Group going forward. So really great to hear and learn today, and I look forward to seeing you more in the future.
Thanks, Steve.
This is Stephanie, Jenny. I just pretty exciting in the Mat-Su. Our first C-PACE projects are getting off the ground. We adopted that legislation a couple of years ago, and we have a hotel project in Wasilla that's taking advantage of it, and a mixed commercial and dermatology center in Palmer. So if anybody follows C-PACE, that's exciting. Those are the first two projects in Mat-Su under that program.
That's very exciting. Congratulations to the program.
And Bruce, since I always say I'll get in touch with people and I never get time, if you ever want to get up to Southwest and Aleutians, I can put you in contact with the shop teachers here and other people. And then UAF has a pretty good presence out here too for training as well, and does on-site stuff. So you could probably work with Jill at UAF. I don't know if she's back from maternity leave yet, but she puts a lot of classes and stuff on. And also APIA does a lot of energy sponsored things in that out in this community too, because this is their community. So you could probably get some help on top of your grant with some travel and things like that. And like you said, doing the advertising and things like that. But there's definitely a lot of kids actually show interest in HVAC out here. When they all get up and graduate, HVAC's actually probably 25 to 30% of the trades and stuff like that they mentioned that they're looking to go into.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Yes, we'll get together on that.
Great. Well, thank you all for joining. We're at time. I'll make sure to share contact information for our awesome experts and meeting minutes and the recording link in a follow-up in a week or two. But thank you again, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Take care.